We believe a lot of things. So we believe a lot of things about being healthy, being sick, getting healthy, staying well, and I want to start to unpack some of those to see if they're actually true. Go ahead. We believe that medicine has stayed on track or on pace with illness. Is that true? In 1900, the top three causes of death were infectious diseases. So the pneumonia and flu, tuberculosis, and GI infections. So in 1929, penicillin was introduced, and then in the 40s, it started widespread use. And now those are no longer our top three killers, right? So that solved that problem. Now, what we're facing with the top causes of death are things like heart disease and stroke and Alzheimer's and diabetes and chronic lower respiratory diseases and cancer. These are chronic illnesses. And the problem is that we're still trying to treat them with, right, a pill for every ill or a prescription or a procedure. And we saw what the effects of that are. So on average, medicine is 17 years behind science. So what is invented today will be mainstream in medicine in about 17 years. And you might be thinking like, well, every time I watch TV, like there's a new commercial for new drugs, like a new apparatus, a new something, like, aren't we like crazy inventing stuff? So yes, it could seem like that, and it will kind of make your head spin at times, but in a recent year, it was 7 out of 342 approved drugs were actually new. The rest of them were just iterations of other drugs. So drug A, we changed one ingredient, it's now drug B, and it has a 20-year patent again, without much rigorous testing, I might add. Okay. Number 2, it's genetics and age, right? My mom had heart disease, my uncle had heart disease, my sister has heart disease, like, I'm just gonna get heart disease, and it doesn't matter what I do. Wrong. There's a new-ish field out called epigenetics. Is anybody familiar or aware? Awesome. It is like amazing. So what it's saying is that instead of our genes and our DNA being like carved in stone, it's more like light switches that we have the ability to turn on and off based on our environment. So things like what we eat, how we move, what our toxin overload is, those can play a role in whether we express specific genes or not. So our heredity is not our destiny necessarily. We have a lot of control. Another way to say that is genetics loads the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger. So yes, I have bullets, but I never have to shoot my gun if I don't want to. And then age, sorry, I just want to mention age too. We give age way too much credit. I know a lot of people that go to the doctor in their 40s, in their 50s, even their 30s, and they're achy or they have a pain or there's something wrong, and a doctor will tell them that's what it's like to get older. No, we should live well into our 80s, 90s, and healthy until the very end. We shouldn't live, half or a third of our life in sickness. So we give a lot of credit to age when really we have the ability to live a long, healthy life. The body is a group of disconnected organ systems. Man, are we good at compartmentalizing the body, right? I mean, I think of my dad with, his several issues, his several specialists. He had an oncologist, he had an infectious disease doctor, he had a cardiologist, he had a pulmonary doctor, then he had the general hospital doctor, and then all the therapists. It's easy to think that we have all of these specialists for all of these different organ systems, they must work independently, right? And not really even play a role in the other part of our body. So that is not true, but I would like to give you an example of what happened to my dad. So because he had several different issues going on, he was on many different medications. 2 of the medications did not play well together. They were not meant to interact. So the solution was to put one in his right arm and one in his left arm. I'm not kidding you. This is at a hospital. So I've taken physiology and anatomy, but I don't think you have to know that this blood doesn't stay in this arm and this blood doesn't stay in this arm. That's not the intent at all. I mean, we give drugs in our arms, right? almost never to help our arms. The idea is to get systemically to whatever the area of concern is. So, I mean, the disconnect was like mind-boggling there. But the truth is that our body is super connected, well connected. Everything needs everything else. The heart needs the lungs need the heart, the brain needs the gut, everything needs the liver. And it's really, it's not accurate to think that you can independently change or affect one organ system without having an effect on the rest of your body. If you take a pain medication, for example, for a knee that's sore, I mean, yeah, it'll get to your knee, but it's going to get to the rest of your body as well, including your liver, including your digestive tract, and things like that. Treating the symptoms is good enough. We're really good at that. We have a problem, we mask the symptom, and isn't that wonderful? And it does provide immediate relief, but that's not really getting to the root cause of the problem. So for example, if I have a rash on my arm, I go to the doctor, maybe they send me to the dermatologist, and what happens when you have some issue with your skin? They give you a cream or an ointment or a lotion, and you put that on and it goes away, but then when you stop using it, it might come back. Why? We don't know why your skin erupted in red bumps. It's not supposed to, right? Like why is your skin having this reaction? So your skin is kind of like a check engine light. If your check engine light goes on in your car, you don't go to the mechanic and then he puts a piece of tape over the check engine light, right? Like, well, you can't see it anymore, so the problem must be solved. No, you go and you have them look at the car to see what is causing the check engine light to be on. So the skin is a really good example of a check engine light. Head pain is really a good example of a check engine light. Low energy, mood fluctuations, sluggish bowels, all of those things are indicating that something else is going on. So we need to get to the why, and we don't do that very often. The body makes a lot of mistakes. So we are convinced, or it seems like we're convinced, that the body's making wrong turns all the time, right? Like the body, I don't know why the body's doing this, so it must need a medication. We must need to rip this organ out. We must need to do this procedure. We must need a medication because the body's constantly making mistakes. I'm here to tell you that is just as far from the truth as you can get. The body is highly intelligent, amazing, and I'll give you some examples. So if I cut myself, say, on my arm, if I leave it alone, it will get better, right? Given the right conditions, it just gets better. If I cut the tip of my finger, of my dominant hand, how long does that take to heal? Forever, right? Because I'm zipping and I'm buttoning and I'm typing and I'm pressing. So I'm kind of abusing it over and over and over. I'm not giving it the right conditions to heal. So when the body has the right conditions, it does the right thing. If you think about something like frostbite or like neuropathy, right? If you've ever, known anybody to get frostbite, they don't get frostbite in their heart or in their brain. They get it on their fingers and their toes and maybe the tips of their ears, because you can live without those body parts. You can't live without a heart. You can't live without the lungs. So your body's like, okay, I'm freezing. I don't have enough circulation to hit my whole body. We're going to start cutting it off to the organ or to the body parts that that we can live without. So the body doesn't make a lot of mistakes. In fact, it's quite intelligent. All right. Doctors know my body better than I do. So they have gone to medical school. They've likely seen thousands of patients, but nobody will ever know your body like you do. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you feel something, if you're experiencing something, if something doesn't feel right, that's right. That's valid and it's accurate and you should be heard. So if you ever feel like you're being dismissed, if you ever feel like you're not being heard, I would urge you to find another healthcare provider. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. And I know that sounds, easier said than done, because, it's like, well, I've had this doctor and, finding another doctor, but this is your health, your life, your longevity, the quality of your life. So I would urge you to find a doctor that's going to take the time to listen to you and take your concerns seriously. I would suggest actually, if you can, finding like a more integrative doctor. So something like a functional medicine doctor or an NMD, which is a naturopathic medical doctor. They're licensed, they can prescribe, they can run tests, they can be your your primary care physician, but they take a more integrative approach. They will opt for natural solutions whenever possible. And if you search on the internet, it's the Institute for Functional Medicine. You can do a search for practitioners by your area. Somebody has to take your concerns seriously, and if they don't, then they don't deserve to be your doctor. So in cases like people feel like they have no other options, right? So if they've been told they have to be on medication for the rest of their life, or the only solution is like an invasive procedure, a lot of times they don't want to do that, but they just don't know other options. So I'm here to tell you there are other options. There are a way to support the body in a more natural, healing fashion that doesn't have as many adverse effects. In fact, the side effects are usually wonderful, right? Like eating healthy and things like that. Okay, next. And health is very complicated. So that's what we think, right? Like health is very complicated. I mean, it makes sense. If you go, hospitals are huge and there's specialists of like every single kind, and there's so much information out there, and there's a book for everything, and no matter what you want to believe, there's an article or a study or a podcast or something that is going to back it up. So I'm just going to throw my hands up in the air and eat the double cheeseburger because I can't really decide what's right. So I'm just going to do what I want to do. And I'm just here to tell you, like, please don't eat the double cheeseburger, at least not every day. But that's what some of the companies, like the big food companies, even like pharmaceutical, they're counting on you not being sure and being overwhelmed and just kind of giving in. And if you remember the smoking, maybe a couple of decades ago, right? Like, I mean, it's still ongoing. But the tobacco didn't have to prove that that cigarettes caused cancer. They just had to insert a sliver of doubt that it might not, right? And then everybody gets confused, or they're like, well, we don't know, so I can keep smoking. And now we can say that with big food, right? Like, well, I don't really know if artificial flavors are bad. I don't really know if GMOs are bad. So I'm just gonna, have whatever I want. So health is not very complicated. Even though the body is like a symphony of like amazingness, being healthy doesn't have to be complicated.